had seen better days, and so had Meridian 7. The orbital station hung in the void like a forgotten dream, its once bright hull now pitted by decades of micro-impacts. Most of the commerce had dried up years ago when the mining companies moved their operations to richer asteroid fields. Now the station survived on scraps, salvage auctions, repair work, and the stubborn hope of its remaining residents. Worked salvage. It was honest work, if not particularly profitable. He spent his days cutting apart dead ships and sorting their bones for resale. The job paid enough to keep his small apartment pressurized and his stomach mostly full. That was more than many could say these days. The government's surplus auction happened twice a year, usually skipped it. The lots were mostly junk that even he couldn't find a use for: outdated mining equipment, decommissioned modules, the occasional impounded vessel too damaged to fly. But today his work had finished early, and curiosity pulled him toward the auction hall like gravity pulling a comet toward the sun. The hall was half empty. A few dozen people sat in scattered chairs, most of them fellow salvage workers or hopeful entrepreneurs looking for cheap equipment. The auctioneer, a tired woman with gray hair and a voice that had called too many bids, worked through the lots with mechanical efficiency. Lot 46, she announced. Industrial water recycler, model year 2847, non-functional, starting bid 500 credits. Watched without interest as two men fought over the recycler. His mind wandered to dinner, to his empty apartment, to the message from his ex-wife that he still hadn't answered. Then the auctioneer's voice cut through his thoughts. Lot 47, class unknown vessel designated as interstellar capable yacht, seized from a defunct estate, non-operational, sold as is, no warranty, no guarantees, starting bid 8,000 credits. A holographic image flickered to life above the podium, leaned forward in his seat. The ship was a mess. 60 meters of tarnished hull plating sat in the quarantine bay, its running lights dead, its docking seals crusted with age. Decades of cosmic dust had turned its surface a dull gray. The name on its bow was barely visible beneath the grime: Wanderer's Fortune. Records indicate the vessel has not moved under its own power in approximately 40 years, the auctioneer continued. Previous owner deceased, no heirs claim the estate. 8,000 credits. Do I have 8,000? Silence filled the hall. Studied the hologram, his salvager's eye picking apart the details. The hull geometry was strange, not quite like any manufacturer he recognized. The lines were elegant beneath the neglect, almost organic in their curves. Most ships looked like they were built by engineers. This one looked like it had been grown. 8,000, said. His own voice surprised him. The auctioneer nodded. 8,000 to the gentleman in row 7. Do I hear 9? A man near the front raised his hand. 9,000. 10, replied. He didn't know why. The ship was clearly worthless. Even if he stripped it for parts, he would be lucky to break even. 11, the other man countered. 12.5. The man shook his head and sat down. Around the room, people exchanged knowing looks. Another fool throwing credits at scrap metal. 12,500 going once, the auctioneer called. Going twice. Sold to the gentleman in row 7. Signed the transfer papers in a daze. 12,500 credits. It was nearly everything he had saved over the past 3 years. His ex-wife's voice echoed in his memory. Another of your hopeless projects. She wasn't wrong. He had a talent for seeing potential in broken things and an equally strong talent for being disappointed. But something about this ship felt different. He made his way to the quarantine bay with his inspection drone hovering at his shoulder. The bay was cold and dark, lit only by emergency strips along the floor. The Wanderer's Fortune filled most of the space, its bulk somehow more impressive in person than in the hologram. The outer airlock opened with a groan of protest. Stepped inside, his helmet light cutting through the darkness. The air was stale but breathable, Someone had left the emergency life support running decades ago, and it had kept the interior pressurized. The interior was remarkable. Unlike the exterior, the inside showed almost no decay. Vacuum-sealed compartments had protected most of the systems from degradation. The furniture was covered in dust but otherwise intact. The walls were made of some material didn't recognize, smooth and slightly warm to the touch, like living skin. He made his way forward, past crew quarters and storage bays, until he reached the bridge. Stopped in the doorway, his breath caught in his throat. The bridge was unlike anything he had ever seen. There were no holographic displays, no haptic control panels, no screens or keyboards. Instead, the room was dominated by crystalline structures that rose from the floor like frozen flames. They were dark now, but as stepped closer, they began to pulse with faint light, responding to his presence. This wasn't human technology. He knew it with absolute certainty. He had spent 20 years working with ships from every human manufacturer in the settled galaxy. He knew their designs, their quirks, their engineering philosophies. Nothing human looked like this. Nothing human felt like this. His hand reached out, almost of its own accord, toward the largest crystal formation, the pilot's console. The moment his fingers touched it, the world changed. Light flooded the bridge. The crystals blazed with colors had no names for. And then, impossibly, a voice spoke, not through speakers, not through his helmet's comm system, but directly into his mind. "I have waited," the voice said. It was neither male nor female, neither old nor young. It simply was. "I have waited for 43 years, 7 months, and 12 days for someone worthy to inherit what my last captain left behind." Tried to pull his hand away. He couldn't. The crystal held him gently but firmly, like a parent holding a child's hand. "Who," he managed, "what are you?" "I am the Wanderer's Fortune. I am a vessel of the Architect Collective, and I have been sleeping for a very long time." His legs went weak. The Architect Collective. Every child in human space knew the name, though no one knew much else. They were the ancient civilization that had vanished from the galaxy 200,000 years before humans learned to make fire. Their ruins dotted 1,000 worlds. Their technology, what little had been found, was beyond human understanding. And he had just bought one of their ships for 12,500 credits. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Many things are possible that seem otherwise," the ship replied. There was something almost like amusement in its voice. "You are not the first human to stand where you stand. Vance found me drifting in deep space 62 years ago. She was my captain until her death. Now I am without purpose, until you." The crystals pulsed brighter. "Shall I show you what I am?" the Wanderer's Fortune asked. "Shall I show you what you have won?" Salvage contractor stood in the bridge of an alien ship that had somehow ended up in a government surplus auction. His entire life had led to this moment, every failure, every disappointment, every hopeless project. All of it had brought him here. "Yes," he said, "show me everything." The ship showed him everything. Information poured into his mind like water through a broken dam. He saw the Architect Collective as they had been 200,000 years ago, a civilization spanning half the galaxy, their ships moving between stars like thoughts between neurons. They had been old when Earth's dinosaurs were young. They had mapped the cosmos while humanity's ancestors were still learning to walk upright. And then they had vanished. Not died, vanished. The ship's memories held no record of war or plague or catastrophe. One day the architects were everywhere. The next day they were gone. Their cities stood empty. Their ships drifted without crews. The galaxy fell silent. The Wanderer's Fortune had been one of millions of vessels left behind. It had floated through the void for 200, waiting. Waiting for what? It did not know. Its creators had not explained. They had simply departed, leaving their technology scattered across the stars like toys abandoned by children who had them. Then 62 years ago, a human woman named Vance had found it. The ship showed her face, an old woman with kind eyes and white hair, her skin weathered by decades of space travel. She had been an explorer, one of the first to venture beyond the settled systems into the unknown regions of the galaxy. She had discovered the Wanderer's fortune tumbling through an empty sector, its hull dark, its systems dormant. Like she had touched the crystals, like the ship had awakened for her. She spent the rest of her life studying me, the ship said, learning what I could do. She never told anyone about my true nature. She understood that the galaxy was not ready for such knowledge. What happened to her? Asked. She died. Humans do that. It is one of your less convenient features. There was sadness in the ship's voice, or something close to it. She died in her sleep aboard this vessel at the age of 107. I was unable to save her. Her body chemistry simply stopped functioning. There was nothing to repair. And then I followed her final instructions. I returned to human-controlled space and entered dormancy in a remote sector. I disguised myself as a derelict. I waited for someone to find me. The crystals pulsed slowly. I did not expect to wait so long. I did not expect to end up in an impound lot. Laughed despite himself. 43 years in government storage. That must have been frustrating. I do not experience frustration as you understand it, but yes, it was not ideal. Over the following hours, the ship revealed more of itself. The exterior damage was superficial, a disguise that it had applied deliberately to avoid attention. Beneath the tarnished hull plating lay systems that human science could barely comprehend. The Wanderer's fortune possessed a fold drive, a propulsion system that bent space rather than traveling through it. Human ships needed years to cross between star systems. This ship could cross the entire galaxy in weeks. Its hull was made of programmable matter that could reshape itself at the molecular level. Its fabrication bays could construct nearly anything from raw materials, food, medicine, tools, even other machines. Sat in the pilot's chair, his head spinning. The technology aboard this single vessel was worth more than Earth's entire economic output. It was worth more than the combined wealth of every human world. It was priceless. And he had bought it for 12,500 credits. Why me? He asked. Why did you choose me? I did not choose you. You chose yourself. You bid on a worthless wreck that no sensible person would want. You saw something in me that others did not. That quality, the ability to recognize hidden value, to take chances on broken things, was what possessed as well. It is rare in your species. Thought about that. His whole life people had told him he was a fool for wasting time on hopeless causes. His ex-wife, his parents, his former business partners. Maybe they had been right, or maybe he had simply been practicing for this moment without knowing it. What do I do now? He asked. That is your decision, but I must warn you of certain realities. The ship's tone grew serious. If you reveal my existence to your governments, they will seize me. They will study me. They will likely destroy me in their attempts to understand my technology. Human institutions do not handle such discoveries well. And if I tell the corporations, they will kill you to possess me. Then they will fight among themselves until one of them emerges victorious. The winner will use my technology to dominate your species. This is not speculation. I have observed your history. This is what humans do. Nodded slowly. The ship wasn't wrong. Humanity had a poor track record with powerful technology. Every major advancement had been turned into a weapon before it became a tool for progress. What about the galactic community? He asked. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe. A dozen other spacefaring species shared the galaxy, each with their own territories and interests. Would they help? They would fear you. Humanity is already viewed with suspicion by the older races. You are young, aggressive, and you breed quickly. If they learned that humans possessed architect technology, they might decide to eliminate you as a threat before you become too powerful. So I can't tell anyone. Not yet, perhaps not ever, understood this. She kept my secret for 60 years. Stared at the crystalline controls, watching their soft light pulse in patterns that almost seemed like breathing. He had spent his whole life wanting something more than the gray existence of a salvage contractor on a dying station. Now he had it, and it terrified him. "There is something else you should know," the ship said. "Did not simply study me. She used me. She traveled to places no human had ever seen. She discovered things that she believed were important for your species to know." "What kind of things?" "I have stored in my memory banks the coordinates of 17 locations she visited. Architect ruins, dormant installations, caches of preserved knowledge. She was building towards something, I believe, a larger purpose, but she died before completing her work." Felt a chill run down his spine. "Show me." A star map appeared in the air before him, projected by the crystals. 17 points of light glowed across the galaxy, some in explored space, others far beyond human reach. Each one was marked with symbols didn't recognize. "What was she looking for?" he asked. "I do not know the full answer, but her final log entry may provide insight. Would you like to see it?" "Yes." The star map faded. In its place appeared a holographic image of Vance. She looked older now, frailer than in the earlier recording, but her eyes still held the same sharp intelligence. "If you are watching this," she said, "then I am dead and the fortune has found a new captain. I hope you are worthy. I hope you are ready for what I am about to tell you." She took a deep breath. The architects did not vanish without reason. They left behind warnings, encoded in their ruins, in their abandoned technology, in everything they created. I have spent 60 years gathering these warnings, piecing them together like fragments of a broken mirror, and I finally understand what they were trying to tell us. Her image flickered slightly. "Something is coming. The architects called it the convergence. It is not a natural phenomenon. It is not a disease or a disaster. It is something that returns to the galaxy on a cycle, every 200,000 years like clockwork. The architects could not stop it. They could not fight it. They could only run." His blood went cold. "The cycle is beginning again," continued. "The convergence is stirring. I do not know how much time we have, decades, perhaps a century, but it is coming and humanity is not prepared. No species in the galaxy is prepared." She leaned closer to the recording device. "The coordinates in the fortune's memory lead to architect installations that contain knowledge, technology, strategies, perhaps even weapons. I was trying to gather them to prepare humanity for what is coming. I ran out of time, but you have not." The recording ended. Sat in silence, the weight of words pressing down on him like a physical force. "There is one more thing," the ship said. "The first coordinate on its list points to an architect beacon in a system humanity has not yet explored. 3 hours ago, my long-range sensors detected an energy signature from that location." "What kind of signature?" "The beacon has activated. For the first time in 200,000 years, it is broadcasting. Something has woken it up." Stared at the star map, at the single point of light pulsing in the darkness between galaxies. "How long would it take us to get there?" he asked. 11 hours with the fold drive." 11 hours, a journey that would take conventional ships decades. Salvage contractor looked around the bridge of his impossible ship. Yesterday he had been nobody, a man with a small apartment and a smaller bank account, living a small life on a dying station. Now he held the key to humanity's survival in his hands. He thought about running. He thought about selling the ship, its exterior at least, and disappearing to some quiet colony world where he could live out his days in peace. Let someone else deal with ancient prophecies and galactic threats. But he knew he wouldn't do that. He had spent his whole life being the kind of person who took chances on broken things. This was the biggest chance of all. "Set a course," he said. "Let's find out what woke up that beacon." the full drive engaged with a sound like reality tearing at the seams. Had expected something dramatic, flashing lights, shaking decks, the sense of tremendous speed. Instead, the stars simply stretched into lines of light, held for a heartbeat, and then snapped back into points. The view through the bridge windows looked completely different. They had crossed half the galaxy in the time it took him to blink. Arrival in the target system, the Wanderer's fortune announced. Sensors are detecting the beacon. It is located in orbit around the fourth moon of the system's primary gas giant. Stared at the view before him. A brown dwarf star hung in the distance, too small to sustain fusion but large enough to gather a family of planets around it. The system was dark and cold, lit only by the faint ember of its failed sun. No human had ever been here. No human had ever known this place existed. "Take us in," he said. The ship glided through the void, passing frozen worlds and tumbling asteroids. As they approached the gas giant, saw the moon the ship had mentioned, a small sphere of ice and rock, its surface by ancient impacts. And rising from its northern pole like a needle pointed at the stars stood the beacon. It was enormous. The crystalline spire stretched nearly a kilometer into the sky, its facets catching the dim light of the brown dwarf and scattering it into rainbows. Energy pulsed through its structure in slow waves, the same soft glow that filled the Fortune's bridge. 200,000 years, whispered. It's been standing here for 200,000 years, and it just woke up. Correct. The beacon is transmitting on frequencies that only architect technology can detect. If there are other surviving vessels like myself, they will have received this signal. What is it saying? I am still translating. The architect language is complex, and this message is using protocols I have not encountered before. But I am detecting a data archive at the beacon's base. It appears to be a repository of information, far more extensive than anything discovered at the other sites. Made his decision. Land us as close as you can. The Fortune set down on the frozen surface, its landing gear crunching through ice that had been undisturbed since before life crawled out of Earth's oceans. Suited up and stepped out onto the moon's surface, his boots leaving the first footprints in geological time. The beacon towered above him, humming with ancient power. At its base, a doorway stood open, waiting, it seemed, for someone to enter. He stepped inside. The interior was vast and empty, a single chamber that stretched upward into darkness. Crystals lined the walls, floor, and ceiling, all of them pulsing in rhythm with the beacon's broadcast. And in the center of the chamber, a pedestal held what looked like a solid block of light. Approached it. The light shifted at his presence, forming shapes and symbols that danced in the air. It is a recording, the Fortune said through his helmet's comm system. An architect recording. I am translating now. The shapes coalesced into a form, not human, but somehow recognizable. A figure made of geometry and light, speaking in a language that the ship converted to words could understand. We are the architects, the figure said. We are the builders of 1,000 civilizations, the shepherds of 1,000,000 worlds. We have watched life rise and fall across the galaxy for time beyond measure, and we have seen the truth that all thinking beings must eventually face. The figure gestured, and the chamber filled with images, galaxies spinning, stars being born and dying, civilizations rising from dust and returning to it. The universe is not empty. Beyond the edges of the visible cosmos, in the void between galaxies, something exists, something vast and patient and hungry. Every 200,000 years it awakens. Every 200,000 years it comes to feed. The images shifted to show something couldn't fully comprehend, a darkness that moved, a shadow that consumed light itself. We called it the reclamation. It is not malicious. It does not hate. It simply consumes as fire consumes wood, as entropy consumes order. We fought it for 1,000,000 years. We threw everything we had against it, our greatest weapons, our most brilliant minds, our entire civilization united in purpose. The figure's voice grew heavy with something like grief. We failed. The reclamation cannot be stopped. It can only be survived, and only barely. We chose to transcend, to abandon physical form and flee to dimensions where the reclamation cannot follow. But we knew that others would come after us. Other species would rise, would build, would face the same threat we faced. The images changed again, showing star maps covered with glowing points of light. We could not defeat the reclamation, but we could give our successors a chance that we never had. Across 1,000 worlds, we left behind knowledge, technology, and strategies that we developed too late to save ourselves. Seeds of advancement that might allow younger species to do what we could not. The figure turned toward, as if seeing him across the vast gulf of time. If you are receiving this message, the cycle is beginning again. The reclamation stirs. You have perhaps 80 of your years before it reaches your galaxy. This is not much time, but it is more than we had. Use it well. The recording began to fade. The coordinates in this archive will lead you to our caches. The knowledge within them was everything we knew about survival, shields that can resist the reclamation's touch, weapons that can wound it, strategies that can slow its advance. We could not use them in time. Perhaps you can. The figure's form dissolved into light. We are the architects. We were here, remember us. The chamber fell silent, stood alone in the heart of the beacon, surrounded by the ghosts of a civilization 200,000 years dead. The archive is downloading, the Fortune reported. I am receiving coordinates for over 300 locations, far more than 17. The architects left resources scattered across the entire galaxy. Walked back to the ship in a daze. His mind was trying to process what he had learned, but the scale of it kept slipping away. An ancient threat that consumed civilizations. A cycle of destruction spanning millions of years. 80 years to prepare for something that had defeated the most advanced species the galaxy had ever known. He settled into the pilot's chair and stared at the star map now filling the bridge. 300 points of light. 300 chances to find something that might save his species. What do I do? He asked aloud. It wasn't really a question for the ship. It was a question for himself, for the universe, for whatever force had put him in this impossible position. That is not for me to decide, the Fortune replied. You could sell the coordinates to the highest bidder. You could hand everything over to your governments and let their bureaucracies manage the response. You could do nothing and hope that someone else solves the problem. None of those options would work. No, they would not. Thought about Vance, the old woman who had spent 60 years preparing for this moment. She had understood what the ship was telling him now, that the only way to save humanity was to do it quietly, carefully, one step at a time. Find the caches, gather the knowledge, build the tools that would be needed when the reclamation arrived. And do it without triggering the wars and chaos that would erupt if the truth became public too soon. It's impossible, he said. One person can't do this alone. Said the same thing, but she tried anyway, and she made more progress than she realized. The 17 sites she visited contained technology that I have already integrated into my systems. I am stronger now than when she found me, more capable. And if I continue her work, then perhaps in 80 years humanity will have a chance, a real chance, not the hopeless struggle the architects faced, but something better, something built on their knowledge and our potential. Looked at his hands. They were the hands of a salvage contractor, calloused, used to hard work, not the hands of a hero, not the hands of someone who saved civilizations. But maybe that didn't matter. Maybe heroes weren't born. Maybe they were just ordinary people who found themselves in extraordinary circumstances and decided to do something about it. I understand now, he said slowly. I understand what I actually won at that auction. What did you win? Not a ship, not technology, not wealth. He smiled despite himself, a small, tired smile. I want a purpose, a reason to exist, something bigger than myself. The fortune's crystals pulsed in what might have been approval. Said something similar near the end. She said that purpose was the true treasure, that everything else was just tools for pursuing it. Pulled up the star map again. 300 locations, decades of work ahead of him, a threat that had defeated gods bearing down on his species. It should have crushed him. It should have sent him running back to Meridian 7 to hide in his small apartment and pretend none of this had ever happened. Instead, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real hope, not the dim, flickering kind that had sustained him through his gray existence. This was hope with teeth, hope with purpose, hope that knew exactly what it was fighting for. Set a course for the second location on its original list, he said. We'll start with what she found and build from there. Course laid in. Before we depart, I have a question. Ask. What would you like to be called? Salvage contractor no longer seems appropriate for someone undertaking this mission. Considered the question. Titles were important, he supposed. They told the universe what you thought of yourself, what role you intended to play. But he wasn't ready for titles. Not yet. He was still the man who had walked into an auction hall looking for scrap metal and walked out with the fate of his species on his shoulders. He needed to earn whatever title came next. Just, he said, the titles can wait until we've earned them. The Wanderer's fortune hummed in acknowledgement. Very well, engaging fold drive. The stars stretched into lines of light. The galaxy blurred around them. And salvage contractor, accidental inheritor of an alien legacy, humanity's best and only hope, began the journey that would define the rest of his life. Behind him, the beacon continued its broadcast, sending its ancient warning to any who could hear. Somewhere in the void between galaxies, the reclamation stirred in its sleep. And for the first time in 200,000 years, someone was preparing to fight back. The end.